Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Warhammer Meta Chasers. My name is Paul, your host. I'm joined by Dustin Henshaw
Hello, everybody.
and Adam Camilleri.
Evening, afternoon, morning, everyone.
Then I said Thursday. It's Friday for Adam. I don't know if we mentioned that a lot, but he's in the future.
I am in the future. It's true.
So
It is known.
technically, he can tell us what the meta is, but we
True.
know what the meta is because we've been looking at it, we've been studying it. This is your weekly hype show for the biggest and best tournaments coming up over the weekend, and I'm excited to jump right into it. We have 2 events to cover. We also want to give a shout out to, where's War Games Live? Is it the Wasteland Wars?
No, he's having a week off. He's got another week off this week. Yeah,
very unusual for him to take.
Very unusual for him to have 2 weeks off in a row. Oh yes, it does. Yeah.
Well, still go earmark the channel, subscribe if you haven't already. That way, whenever it is coming up, you'll see it. As I mentioned, we do this live, so you just get to hear all that unfold real time. If you were hanging out in the chat with us, you would also be able to participate, point out the fact like, hey, Paul, get your act together. But we do have 2 wonderful events to talk about, and that is going to be one of them in the Smite Club from Phoenix, Arizona, 102 players, 6-round event. If you're new here, what we do is we run down the factions, the number of factions represented at the weekend. We highlight some list at the end of it. Then we take some predictions on whom we think is taking the crown. And I have to assume that this is going to be pre-balanced slate stuff because maybe they'll implement it, maybe they won't. Do we know that?
No, it's almost certainly pre data slate for this week.
Yeah, so this is probably going to be the last week that we have it then, right? So the data slate should be all in full swing for next week.
Exactly right. You will note when we get to the list breakdowns for this week, I have gone through and put in the new totals for the points changes. So we'll see what these lists that top players have taken this week, what they look like come Monday.
Wow. All right.
There you go. So that's why you want to check us out both weeks now. This is back to back. Going to be like a continuation here. There's a saga. All right. So what we're going to be seeing here out of the 102 players at Smite Club, which is, by the way, an awesome name. I love that. The Imperial Super Faction, there are 5 Justice of Battle, 7 Custodes, 1 AdMech, 2 Astra Militarum, 2 Grey Knights, and 4 Imperial Knights. Space Marines, there's 5 Adeptus Astartes, 2 Dark Angels, 1 Space Wolf, 3 Blood Angels, 3 Death Watch, 2 Black Templar. Chaos, there's 6 Chaos Space Marines, 5 T-Suns, 1 Death Guard, 2 World Leaders, 2 Demons, and 2 Chaos Knights. Xenos, there's 9 Necrons, 5 Orcs, 8 Tau, and 1 Votan. Hive Mind, there's 4 Tyranids, 7 Gene Stealer Cults, and Eldari, there's 1 Drukhari, and then 9 Eldari. Meaning the faction podium, Necrons tying Eldari in the first with 9, Tau in second with 8, Custodes and GSC in third with 7, CSM in fourth with 6, Orcs, T-Suns, Astartes, Sisters in fifth with 5. Wow,
what a spread!
I'm quite crazy in what I'm about to say, but apart from the third placed faction, the third placed on our podium, the Custodes and the GSC, that could be next week's faction podium.
That's true. When he was reading it, I was actually, I was curious. Is like, are we sure they haven't?
Are we sure? Yeah.
I did these stats for the event before the data slate dropped, so there is that. There is no way this is data slate in effect unless Arizona has is actually truly ahead of the meta.
That's actually kind of funny too.
Yeah. So in the future,
Custodes and GSC of this podium, I expect to have their numbers drop off in the short term before people try and finalize and formalize what is going to be their best performers moving forward, because they've taken enough of a hit that their best list is going to need a rethink. Whereas Eldari and Necrons, I think, are just fine to continue with a couple of adjustments. Wraith Knight goes out. Necrons don't change at all. And Tau, I think, is one of the biggest winners from the data slate changes. So them on the podium is absolutely hilarious for this week.
Yeah, they're all ready now, but they didn't know about this ahead of time, did they? My God.
Well, dude, I have nothing for you to tell you why there are 5 Sisters players.
That's also true. We haven't seen any, maybe one. What's out of all 3 events that we cover?
What's the secret tech in the Adeptus Sororitas? Is it, there's something in the walkers that we don't know about? Like,
it has to be, because it can't be the Repentia anymore, is it?
It's right. It's none of them. It's none of their special weapons, because none of their special weapons do anything at the moment. Flamers, I suppose, that can go all right. But
castigators, long range shots.
You just asked me that question, Paul, and I'm like, I actually have no idea. I don't know. For every other 100-ish player event we've had this season, there's been between 0 and 3 sisters. Usually closer to the 0
Well,
than the
what's
3.
pushed the
This one's got
Necrons to
5.
the top? Because I've saw a lot over the course of the weekend in Nova. I actually saw a bunch of Transcendent Satans. Is that
Mhm.
what are they working into these lists?
One of them for sure, because you want that 4-up feel no pain with it jumping around. So
Mm.
those things are actually a pain to deal with. They can get really easy secondaries and just be a pain to shift, just like the Lich Guard block. And a lot of them have started bringing in like either the Nightbringer, I think is the one that they usually bring. I think Nightbringer, yeah, right? Yeah. No, it's only Nightbringer. They are just bricks that can get secondaries, tie things up. It's melee. One of the things that you find in like 10th right now, it's like even though melee isn't huge, like a huge prevalent thing right now, the bigger units that are decent in melee and durable really disrupt your opponent, and they can get secondaries a lot of the time. Necrons and Satans have that in spades.
Well, so 100%, mate. And big units that we're seeing from Necrons, we have seen this Neophytes leverage it. We're about to see a freaking unending swarm of Tyranids do this also.
Uh,
Is that you might not be killing each other very well in the combat phase, but the charge is technically still a second move phase. And if
Yep.
you're still thinking about it like that, you can still go and do a lot of the things you used to do last edition. Disruption, locking down the board for opposition movement, tagging, wrapping, trapping, all these things are still viable
Choking the
options.
objectives with your OC.
Yeah.
There's
Yep.
Mhm.
Yep. Absolutely right. There are some other interesting things here. So Eldari numbers are significantly down from what we would expect. We have seen 100-player events with 15, 18 Eldari players in attendance, like pushing towards 15 to 20% of the meta. Here, under 10% of the meta here. Very, very happy with that. Necron sitting in tides with them as well. Chaos Space Marines is an interesting one to see what happens with them post-slate. And I will also be interested to see how General Societies do with, they've got a codex coming pretty soon also. So they could be riding a little bit of a resurgent wave sooner rather than later.
Enjoy
Chaos,
5 Desolation Marines in the meantime.
Yeah, pour one out for the Desos. Pour one out. Oh, well, only if you really want to. I wouldn't hold it against
I
you if
wouldn't
you
pour
said,
one
nah.
out for them. I think that that's fine. It's fine.
Chaos Space Marines, gonna have to ask themselves, Abadoo or Abadon't with their
Yes.
list. We've seen
Yep,
some
yep.
Chaos Space Marines that if you don't take Abaddon on your list, you do get some extra tricks and toys, but still it's kind of hard to resist that temptation.
He is good. He
He
is
is
very good.
very good still. But anyway, let's go to some of those top players in attendance. And of course, this is Arizona. So this is the hometown of the Mastodon himself, Don Husin, who's like, up until this point, was literally the only Death Guard player in the world. And there was a couple of other people as well. But there was like 5 of them. So this is Don Husin's list for this event. And as you can see on our lovely slide, you can see what the new total is for this same list with the data slate in effect. And of course, I did do this all like 6 lists that we have for your viewing pleasure. I did these in about 15 minutes. So if the points are incorrect, my absolute apologies. It was a lot of alt tabbing all over the place. So he has a Plague Company detachment, of course, of Death Guard. He has Mortarion, 3 Defilers, 3 Blight Haulers, 3 PBCs, and a War Dog Huntsman. And that was 2,000 points and is now 1,875. So 125 points cut off the price of this list. What do we make of the boys?
He doesn't want to move 4 inches.
It's true. It's
We
true.
were like Dustin and I before the show. We were actually talking about like what the Death Guard changes might bring, and we're kind of theorizing that maybe many players still won't go to that list because of the movement. And Don's saying, that's not a stat I'm carrying on. I got a different movement
got
stat.
that under
I
control.
found a way to get around that.
Yeah. Well, this when you have a very much a struggling faction, you will find people doing things like what Don is doing here, taking stuff that you can leverage. You can leverage high toughness with this list. You can leverage a lot of very high toughness and, like you said, very decent movement characteristics. I think it all moves at least 8, if not more. I think the Blight Haulers move 8. They might move 10. I can't remember, but it's all got decent-ish firepower, good toughness, and is actually surprisingly good at combat. I've been impressed with the Defilers in combat when I've seen them make it. And yeah, Morty's just a bag of tricks at times. He's not as killy as I hope he would be one day, because like I've seen him totally fail to kill 5 infiltrators on multiple occasions. But then again, he can be there for 5 turns, so there is value inherently in that. And so Don's leveraging a pretty heavy skew on this occasion.
I'm looking forward to it too. I think
Yep.
it actually is the best way to play Death Guard when you can right now, right? There can't be a wrong way to play Death Guard right
Yep.
now. So,
Well,
I mean,
the fact
The
that you're
huntsman
playing
there. Thing, talking about like the huntsman itself. I mean, those things are have
Mm.
8 OC. They can hang back and claim
Mhm.
claim an objective,
Correct.
or they can run around for you and help you, kind of push things and score points. That's really what you're really ultimately trying to do is hang out and score points. And maybe this list can crack that.
actually, the list can do that. Like, I mean, it's going to be scoring points. I can just do all the secondaries. It's going to be pretty aggressive stat checklist, right? You're just running up. Can you kill this many big things?
Yep.
Although,
Yep.
can you outscore me while doing that? I don't know. Let's find out.
Agreed. All right, moving on to the next one, we have Bob Woodhouse because we did have Tau on the podium, so I wanted to have a look and see what the Tau players were doing. And this was I think the most straight up and straight down Savage one I found. A lot of them had a lot of other little bit and pieces, some broadsides, some hammerheads, some strike teams and pathfinders, stuff like this. And this one just seemed to be the least fat on the bone list that I could pull from the bunch. He's got his Carrion detachment, of course. He's got Anvar, a Colstar, and Crisis Commander. He's got 4 Crute Hounds. He's got 3 Into Crisis suits, all with triple ions and, tooled up with everything because it's all free. He's got a unit of 6 and 2 units of 3 of those Crisis suits. He's got 2 Ghost Keels, a big unit of 3 Piranhas, which is actually the first time I've seen a larger unit of Piranhas, and then 2 singles, and then 3 units of the double Tetras. And that list is now 115 points cheaper, boys.
So, what are you putting in there? More piranhas?
More crisis suits.
Yeah.
In
Give them up
fact,
to 6s.
Yep, I honestly think we may be seeing a resurgence of just like the Unga Bunga 18 crisis could very well become a thing with their points going down. This list is terrifyingly powerful, as it is right now.
I love the
very,
Ghost Keels.
very strong.
Like the
Yeah, me
Ghost
too.
Keels, I think are a standout unit for the Tau. You don't see them too much, but this. I'm not sure why not.
They can do work. They actually can do a lot of work. They're in other words more durable units than the Tau army has. Crisis suits were historically just the core of any of their list. They were fast, they had really good durability, and their firepower was insane. Is it still the case right now? To the same point? No. But with their point drops, they could actually become a thing again, like Adam was saying.
Yeah, so we're looking at the crisis. A unit of 3 crisis suits went down 15 points, so 5 points per model in old terminology. And so you're paying 360 for 6 crisis suits, so 60 points per model with a 4-up invuln, extra wounds, triple ions. There are some profiles that people are talking about. Oh no, with dev wounds going away, how are we going to kill 20 Necron warriors? And I'm like, lol, 6 crisis suits with ions. let's just get the job done. Let's not leave anything to chance.
That'll do it for sure.
Oh, speaking of which, if you're playing on the course of this weekend, like don't update your app if the app is already updating with the stuff. The Warhammer app. That's a little public service announcement. If you are playing coming up this weekend, and you're not using updated stuff, that might change some of
the
things that you're looking at.
That's important information. That's good public service announcement.
Or
good PSA.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Anytime you include things in your list that tell your opponent they can't do something or whatever, it's like, or taking something to 0 or whatever, it's like a value thing to look at. So if they're in your codex, you're not going for it. Ask yourself why.
Agreed. All right, last of the lists for the wonderful Smite Club. This one is Ben Jurick's list, or Ben Mukjurick, since he merked out for the Scots at the WTC. And I've got him on here to demonstrate more than anything the changes. This is the only list. I had a different list in here, and I went back in and chucked in an Eldari list, just so we can see what has occurred.
Ben's in the chat too.
Yeah,
so
he's in the chat.
His opinion.
He's currently ranked 7th in the ITC right now. Hopefully, I know he has aspirations to win the ITC, and that's why he's playing Eldar. But hopefully, he has reason to play something else come Monday. He's got his Battle Host attachment with an Autarch Wayleaper, Farseer Skyrunner, Yinkan, 2 Fire Prisms, a Hornet, 2 Night Spinners, 5 Shadow Spectres, 5 Warp Spiders, a single War Walker, and the Wraith Knight. And this will now cost you, was formerly 2,000 points, is now almost 2,300 points, being 290 points more expensive. And yes, praise be. Put it more. Add more down. Let's go.
2,500. Let's go.
Let's go. This is the Price is Right. Damn it, we should have done that. I should have done that.
We should have done. Did you do it for the other
No,
tournament
I'm taking the points off. Yeah, taking the points off the last two. And we're gonna price is right it with
Prices
the
are
chat.
perfect. I love it.
What do we think it is now?
Oh my god. The Wraith Knight here is that we saw a lot of lists of Wraith Knights performing. And Wraith Knights are something that were on the list on the table originally, and they came off the table, and now they're back on the table.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Dude, it's wild to think the journey the Wraith Knight has been on these last couple of years. But it's very similar to how Knights have been. Like it's a similar trajectory. They're either busted or too weak.
He's usually the exact same because of whatever, like Towering or Titanic, whatever that rule is, it kind of shares a lot of the fate of that, whether it's good or bad. But it also has the additional D weapon, right? So in 7th, that D weapon was kind of a necessity. And Eldar
Sure.
to have that, right?
A lot of
So-
the Eldari list won't have, like, they'll have the Hornets or they'll have the Shadow Specters. So I'm kind of curious as to why there is both one Hornet and one Shadow Specter, or if that's just a modeling choice,
Well,
like our models availability choice, or if there's a tactical reason why you might go one way or the other.
Well, Ben might tell us in the chat.
Yeah, let us know, Ben.
We'll see what he says. But this is an extremely good list. Ben has won majors with this exact same list, maybe some slight variations. But are you boys of the opinion that Aldari is dead, or we're just waiting to see the new?
It is far from dead. Every
Agreed.
Eldari player can calm down. You just got to change it up a little bit.
There's still very much like there will be anti-tank and anti-big model units. So hey, great, you have a big terrifying thing over there. Well, it's still going to die in one shot,
Yeah.
2 shots,
Yeah.
maybe.
Yeah.
One roll resolving, attacks.
Well,
Eldari are far from that. The
Far from
Eldari might be somewhat reasonable about the models you'll see. You may see one less Fire Prism, you may see one less Night Spin, you may see what actually will probably translate into a couple less units they can use to kind of actually be everywhere on the board and score objectives. And so you might be able to get a points advantage on them where that was really hard to do because you were losing pieces all the time.
Yep.
On that.
Well,
previous
that was the thing, right? They were better at the mission than you, and they did more damage than you. Like fundamentally, both to huge degrees. They tabled you while being better at the mission than you against everybody except maybe Necrons, Custodes, and GSC were possibly better mission play. If you were willing to go fixed, if you were willing to have a better battle plan, you could, get a points advantage. But you get tabled, so it doesn't matter.
That's actually the big thing to remember with Eldar right now, because we've seen it happen with other armies in the past too, where they get their main thing nerfed because this is their list. You take this because it's just broken. Getting the big things nerfed doesn't mean that they're dead. Just means, oh, we have to use the other good stuff in our book. Okay, I guess we'll do that then.
Yeah, exactly right. You can't Unga Bunga just slap your stuff down and table.
That's actually one of the comments here is that they're still busted, but the less experienced players won't be carried as hard by the list itself.
Yeah.
So that is look, the pilots will ultimately dictate how well a list does, but y'all both hit it on the head in the chat too. It's like the Eldari have some really strong attributes that are kind of getting rounded, smoothed out just a little bit, and maybe some pilot skill on the other side of the table may help carry some games or make some tighter and closer games.
Agreed.
There you go, Ben. Ben explained the Hornet thing. I actually like that a lot. So favorite move with the Hornet is so far is driving over Solitaire with his mortals, so then he can actually teleport the Incarn in the move phase. That's spicy.
That is
spicy,
good.
Ben. I like it.
That is very good. I like it.
Fly over, they roll some dice, they do some mortals, death happens, Incarn teleports. Like it's a problem.
It's a problem.
Well, I think Incarn went up 80 points.
Worth it. Still.
Not enough.
That is a big chunk, though, comparatively percent-wise.
Not enough.
It is. It's enough that maybe you'll think. I've actually talked to some other players. Like, I might not take it. Like, well, you're silly, but I get it. At least the fact that you're thinking about it means it was a good change.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah, agreed. If it gives you pause. Yeah. All right, we are going to pick some winners, gentlemen, and this is the last week we might be vetoing Eldar from being chosen. What do we want to do?
So here we pick a faction or a player we think that is, and by proxy their faction that is going to take the prize, take the top prize. We have blocked ourselves off from predicting Eldari just to keep things interesting between ourselves. But any other faction, any other player is still on the table, and then we rank ourselves by how close we came to predicting the right first place finish and we roast ourselves in the after show. It's only available to our Patreon subscribers.
We do indeed. As much as I think Necrons with the numbers are probably going to do very well, I'm going to predict the Eldar resurgence. Sorry, the Tau resurgence starts now. And we're doing the Tau
Whoa.
Empire.
Easy.
It starts a week early.
I'll go Custodes.
Ah, damn.
Good choices. I mean, Dustin, Necrons are wide open for you, mate, if you want them. Or GSC.
It's a fresh month, too. These the points really matter.
What's the first?
This is
Okay,
this is
well, I'm going to go GSC because I might not be able to pick them for much longer.
Fair. Well, I do as well. We'll see how the nerfs impact their pickability. All right, gents, what's the next event?
Next event we're covering is the WATC, the Western Australia Team Championship. That's in Perth. If you did not guess, it is in the Western Australia. It is not in the USA. That like the teleprompter is telling me.
Oh, he actually did too. Brilliant. This is from the guy in Australia too, by the way.
Trying to get me, trying to catch me.
It was a good time.
Tried to
It was a
get
good time.
119 players in 20 teams of 5 rounds. We're going to run down the factions here, but in the team tournament, the factions can only be represented once per team. So, the most that we'll see of any one particular faction is 20, and it's kind of fun to see how close it comes to that number.
That's always cool. So, let's see how close it does come. Imperial Super Faction, there is a Sisters of Battle. 17 Custodes, 9 Astra Militarum, 1 Great
85%.
16 Imperial Knights. That's going to be dropping soon. Space Marines, there are 2 Dark Angels, 2 Space Wolves, 2 Blood Angels, 1 Death Watch, and 3 Black Templar. I'm assuming those are all on the same faction as well. They're not going to let you take multiple of those.
So that's the total amount.
Yeah, okay. So that's 11, 10?
It's 10. Yeah.
10. Ha! Neat. Chaos, there's 9 Chaos Space Marines, 9 T-Suns, 1 Death Guard, 2 World Leaders, 3 Demons, and 7 Chaos Knights. Xenos, there's 4 Necrons, 4 Orcs, 0 Tau, and 0 Votan. Hive Mind, there's 6 Tyranids and 6 Gene Stealer Cult. Eldari, there's 2 Drakali, but only 12 Eldari. What? Really?
I was
Are you
very
using
surprised.
New points?
Very surprised. No, 100% not.
Okay. Yeah. Well, that means the faction podium is Custodes, topping it off with 17 out of 20 representation in first. Imperial Knights in second with 16 out of 20. Then Eldari an odd third with 12 out of 20. That was not what I expected. I expected 20 out of 20, like hands down. There's no.
Yeah, it's 18. At the least.
At least 18.
Yeah.
Being in third by not a small margin either. Like, come on.
Weird.
So are these teams like really good friends with each other, and they had to like borrow other people's Eldari list to distill it down into
it's
the
a
12?
It's a very tight knit community. So if you do not know, Perth, Western Australia, is the most isolated city in the world, and because of that, their community is like this. They're all pretty good mates because they play each other all year. And so there is a bit of a robbing from Peter, like who's going to get to use the Eldari army in circulation this year. Plus, I do believe there's been a little bit of, when I look at the teams, they have some of the best players in Western Australia across several different teams. So there's only like, usually when I see an event like this, that's like pretty much a hometown event, teams event, I can usually pick the winner. I can usually go down and be like, that team's going to podium for freaking sure. This time, I actually got no idea. There's like 6 or 7 teams out of 20 that could legitimately win this thing. And it's because I don't know for sure, but it looks to me like they have on purpose spread out some of their best players across more teams as possible. There are some really big clubs here, like the Juggernauts, who have like 4 or 5 teams going, and it looks like they've distributed their best players, and so they've got pretty even squads. So that's really exciting as well. But they're not the only like big names in this. There's actually like legitimately half the teams in this event could possibly crack a podium. It's really actually awesome.
Huh. I mean, team events are always interesting for this kind of stuff too, and I love it when you go to a team event or watch one that you don't know. Okay, well, obviously Art of War is going to win this, and we'll see who gets
exactly
second.
Right. Yeah. Exactly right. And usually there would be like 1, maybe 3 that I'd pick and be like, one of those is going to win. The other 2 are probably going to top 5 almost certainly. Here, no idea. No freaking idea.
Love it.
Well, let's break down a couple of teams.
Yeah, so I've got 2 teams for us to break down. We're doing it a little bit differently at the moment. And so I have the name of the team, and then we have the factions they've taken. And I do have the factions up here on my screen. So if you want to know what kind of archetype they are, boys, please feel free to ask. And then we have one of the more interesting or more savage lists to break down from the team they're in.
Ooh, okay. I like savage lists.
I do like a good team event where you can just really try to skew into this, because I guess we haven't talked about how team events work. I know we talked about it in the past, but if you're just hanging out for the first time, we do this where we go down typically we'll diagnose a team and talk about how they've kind of engineered their team to maybe complete certain task or pair into certain matchups throughout the field, because how this works is you have some kind of hand in maybe what each team member will play against, and it's a back and forth that the captains do about putting out list, defender list, attacking list, and then choosing out of what a given 2 list which one you'd like to face. And that's typically how team lists work, which means you can actually build in some really skewed list, not just a take all comers list you might see in a singles event, but you can kind of gear toward certain types of matchups. And maybe we're going to see that represented here.
Yeah, absolutely. So the breakdown for factions for the Sugmanauts is Thousand Suns, Custodes, Astra Militarums, GSC, Eldari, and Imperial Knights. Now, one of the reasons I picked this lineup is because if I was going to make a 6-pack, literally this is it. This is it. This is 5 of the best factions in the game, and possibly the best teams faction in the game in Astra Militarum, added to the 5 best armies in the game. So you could not be more quintessential, straight up and down, savage. Let's just take the best stuff we can take.
I had to suspect that Astra Militarum is all indirect fire.
You can see it on your screen. It is. Can you close and tap my stuff in 2 turns? No, you're probably tabled. You are getting shellacked.
Let me see what they've got there.
Yep.
Yeah,
I get that.
I'll read it out for people on screen. I've taken Courtney Seal Astra Militarum list because the other 5 lists are all pretty much what you would expect from them, and this is what I would expect from a team's specifically skewed guard list. He's got Gaunt's Ghost, Lord Solar. Sorry, am I having connection issues?
No, you're good.
I don't think so.
Yep. Gaunt's Ghost, Lord Solar, Platoon Command Squad, Creed, 10 Cadians, 3 Bullgryns, 3 Hellhounds, 3 Earthshakers, 3 Medusa Carriages, 3 Manticores, a Rapier Laser Destroyer, a unit of Regimental Attaches, which is, your Master of Ordnance and Fleet and whatever, and then 3 single Scout Sentinels, gents. Now, for some reason, I think I wrote 3. I'm just going to double check that it's 3. So triple Manticore. Sorry, it's only 2 Medusa Carriages. My bad.
Oh,
for some reason in my head. Yeah, I know. Pathetic. So 2
that's still a lot of indirect.
That's still a lot of
they
indirect.
They haven't gone with the Hellhounds, which is what we've seen in some other lists.
Yeah, so the Hellhounds are a bit of an activator for you. When you have stuff like Custodes in cover, it can be a real big problem for you. But when you get the Manticores there, the Hellhounds there, and you remove the cover, they can really pop off, and you really start to get a lot more damage done there as well. I think the Hellhounds are pretty necessary. Like the Hellhounds and the Scout Sentinels are like the activator units from your army, and they're also things that go into the middle and get you the mid-board points as well, while the rest of your army essentially just sits static in your deployment zone.
This is a great list, though. I do really like it.
It's an amazing teams list. It's actually not bad in singles either. It just has a couple of matchups it doesn't want to go into, but that's exactly why it's great for teams, because it can take away like 2, maybe 3 matchups it doesn't want and just dummy whatever else.
Correct.
Looking at this, though, you got the bull. I mean, it has a few things to put in the center of the table to maybe just be, speed bumps, but they may deny you 1 turn of getting closer, which is sometimes maybe all this army needs.
It's important.
Well, it's exactly what I was saying, mate. If you like, do you have 2 turns? Can you close in me on 2 turns? Because if you aren't shutting down, if you're not shutting down significant influences of fire, if you're not shutting down the artillery battery in 2 turns, you're pretty cooked.
When it does have the Hellhounds, I actually was like not looking at the screen when you were going down the list. It's got the Hellhounds. I was like, that's a choice. But I guess that explains some of the other smaller squads and everything, because there's a lot of points wrapped up in some of these units, and can use them to either score some points or go up there and be those speed bumps we're talking about. Again, I'm digging this.
All right, so what do we think? What's the Price is Right number for how many points this list costs now?
Ooh, it
Has
is.
it gone up? Has it gone down? I will tell you this list has gone up pretty significantly actually, in the scheme of things. But as it should, because this list is the kind of oppressive, nowhere near as bad as Eldar, where it kind of is conquering all. But when you can't deal with this list, it's just as unfun as Eldar was, as like double race Knight Eldar. What do we think? Who's willing to have a punt?
I'll do it. I got it. I know the exact number.
Oh, bullshit! You're looking in the notes.
That's what I'm reading from.
Why are you reading from the notes? Look at the screen. Anyway, well, I had to save it somewhere, obviously, and I was working on the fly.
I was looking at the notes. I wasn't looking at the screen. That's why I didn't see the list.
Yeah. Look, all right, not my finest moment. But hey, it was on the fly. This list has gone up 290 points, and I will tell you, it went up the same amount as Ben Jurich's list. Ben Jurich's list, every single unit only stayed the same or went up significantly. In this list, units actually went down as well. But stuff like the Manticores going up, I think it was 25 points each on the Manticores. Essentially, every single artillery piece went up 15 or more points. Has caused this to have a huge blowout, and now it costs almost 300 more points than it does come Monday.
Look, everybody out there playing Astra Militarum. Look at those Demolisher tank commanders. I've been having a lot of fun with them.
Yes, so the Lehman Russes, they're really trying to bring the actual tanks of the Guard back to the Guard, which I think is only good, because essentially the only like actual tank in this, the only thing I would actually call a tank is the Hellhounds. I don't call them Manticores tanks. They don't move. they just sit there.
But they can.
Yeah. They can. Obviously,
Yeah,
they have
obviously.
a movement. They have a movement thing.
They have a movement stat. Come on.
Yeah.
They do. All right. So we have one more teams list to talk, or teams, I guess, combination to talk about.
We do. This team is called Democracy Manifest. And if you want to know what that meme is about, go and Google Democracy Manifest Australia Man. Because essentially it's a Florida man story. It's about a famous chess player who refused to pay for his dinner at a Chinese restaurant. And the cops came in and dragged him out. And he went on this amazing tirade whilst he was getting dragged out. And it's just one of the funniest, most incredible things. And as he's getting pulled out, he says, "Behold, Democracy Manifest," and it's funny as hell. The factions here are Tyranids, Necreon Knights, Orcs, Eldari, and Custodes. So very different from our previous, with only the Custodes, Knights, and Eldari being the double ups here. They didn't have did they have Necrons in the previous one?
They did not.
No, they didn't. Yeah. So the Tyranids, the Orcs, and the Necrons coming in as points of difference between this and the previous team. Of course, when every team has Knights and Custodes, because there's 17 and 16 of the damn things out of 20, it's going to be really hard to get differentiation. But the list I've got for your breakdown here is the Orc list. And it's going to be very interesting to see how this one translates. So he's got 3 beast bosses with Mozrog and a beast boss on Squigosaur. A weird boy.
So powerful.
I love them. Dude, the beast bosses on Squigosaur, I think, are incredible. 3 units of 10 beast snagger boys, 3 trucks to go with them, with the 3 beast bosses and the beast snagger boys and the trucks. 2 units of Gretchen, 663 Squighog boys. So pushing a little bit of a toughness differential on people there. 5 storm boys, 2x3 warbikers, and a new total of 2,070 points. So this actually went up 70 points. And most of that's in the beast bosses. They went up 10 points apiece.
The beast bosses needed to. They're really good.
They hit so hard. Anytime you're putting in toughness 10 things on the table that can scoot around, I mean, that's pretty good.
Yeah, correct. So the trucks went up 10 points and the beast bosses went up 10 points. That accounts for 60 to 70 points it went up, which I think is just fine. There's enough eternal pivots for the Orcs that I think it's totally acceptable where they're at.
Trucks went up? You don't even need the trucks.
Yeah, you don't. I don't have a bead on what else went up for them. Like, did their big tracks go up and stuff like that? Sorry, one sec.
There's the dog barking in the background for those that can't.
Yeah, and this list, I will say that ain't monster keywords. We saw it really play over the course of the last weekend, and I have to imagine it's going to become even more relevant when the Tyranids get their codex and people start putting them on the table.
It might be. I'm interested to see what the Tyranid lists end up being. I feel like, well, I don't want to give.
Gonna have some monsters in it.
Because there are definitely some builds you can do for sure. I want to see how many people bring the Crusher again. It's not like what it used to be. I think it's still paying for its sins of the old Crusher, but
I haven't.
You have to have.
I haven't put too much time into making a list yet, but I mean that triple norm, to go up and say, hey, get me these objectives in the table. Seems like
Norns
it might be
are
a
actually
problem.
really cool. Yeah, I like that a lot. Just it seems like a lot of points, but it's a lot of points just sit on the deck, just like, can you move me? Otherwise, this is just mine.
Yeah, well,
just say these orcs are keyed for that type of stuff already. Like you could just take this list into that environment as is. I mean, scrape out 70 points somewhere, and you lose 5 stories, but then you just get bonuses against someone's entire army.
Yeah, so there's a couple of other interesting lists in this lineup. I actually just pulled up the Tyranid list for you, so I can give you a sense of the archetype. It's a double Biovore, triple Exocrine, double Maleceptor, double Neurothrope list. If that gives you a beat on things, Dustin, it's a pretty thick.
Neurothrope.
Neurotyrant, you mean?
Neurotyrant, okay.
Yeah, so Hive Tyrant, Neurotyrant, double Biovore, triple Exo, triple Lictor, double Maleceptor, single Pyrovore, Trigon, and 2x6 Zoanthropes.
Wow, it's a hard-hitting list. Interesting.
Yeah, it's thick. It's got a lot of high durability. Triple Exo, double Maleceptor, and a Trigon. I'm a really big fan.
Honestly, in Invasion Fleet, triple Exocrine and like Maleceptors, Exocrine especially, and even Zoanthropes to an extent, are just so high value.
There's one other list I want to bring to our attention. Jake O'Grady is the gentleman in question who played for the 2019 WTC team for Australia. He's got what I think is an anti-knight or anti-monster knight list. He's got an Atropos, double Warden, double Helverin, double Warglaive. That's the whole list. If I remember right. Yeah, I remember right, the Atropos, so it gets +1 to hit against monsters and vehicles, and then +1 to hit and +1 to wound against Titanic. So is he here hunting other big Riblets? Yeah, is he here to just try and pop Wraith Knights turn 1? What's its I've just looked it up quickly.
Well, I mean, it's counting on this many night saturations, it works so he gets anything that's that big, right? I mean,
yeah, that's true. There's it's a good anti-knight. It's a knight list as anti-knight, and it could potentially fight some Eldar because you can reserve that and then just bring it on so the
correct
doesn't get first shot off.
I mean, and its main guns are strength 16, so that's wounded on.
Oh wow, wounding on 2s against T12 that's big.
And its bondsman ability, as for right now, which is still benefits from when it gives it out, each time this model makes an attack that targets a Titanic or Towering model, you can reroll the hit roll and you can reroll the wound roll. So
so even Fortune with -1 to wound doesn't care.
Doesn't help you so much because you've got the rerolls. Yeah. So it looks like it's a night list there to be a predator for other Towering and other monsters and Gribblies. So yeah, this is another really cool lineup. I'm interested to see how these boys go. And yeah, I was surprised to see Orcs get so many points added, but then when I thought about the units they were on, it makes a lot of sense to me.
Yeah, I think they were actually good adds for them. Yeah. For the ones that were added, the trucks that's a little odd to me, but the Beast Boss absolutely. Yeah.
So let's think about like an orc list that has really been eating up those devastating wounds recently, like Gene Stealer cults and that kind of stuff as well. So they're going to be a list that really benefit from the changes that are post data slate. So I wouldn't be surprised if something like this. I mean, I'm telling you, I think this type of list is really slotted to do extremely well in everything we've been seeing. Not saying that we're going to keep seeing the same stuff, but I'm willing to bet we know people are going to want to bring their Tyranids out. Orcs are already winning when they're not going into heavy monsters just because their stats alone. And now, lucky Dev Wound Roll won't pick up a whole squad.
Yeah, it's like Horde list could be coming in full force. People are going to have to start bringing a lot more smaller guns in volume.
Necrons and the Endless Swarm attachment, I think, are going to make a splash with Dev Wounds doing what they've done. And also, a lot of the ability that units like Acolytes and Neophytes had to contest with such units has also been decreased. So the two biggest players have lost a lot of their anti-Horde output.
Oh, I can tell you what I don't think the Endless Swarm is the best attachment for Nids, though.
I don't think it is either.
No.
But I think it's the one that's people are gonna notice when they get bad touched by it, by being
which one do you think is the best, Adam? I'm curious what you're thinking.
So I actually think the Harvester one might end up being the best.
Ooh,
but I
spicy.
think that's 6 months away when people have a
Yeah,
level of mastery. I think it's probably the Nexus.
Synaptic Nexus, yeah. It
Yeah.
100% is.
Yeah, it's probably Synaptic Nexus. I would not be surprised though if people start regenerating Karn effectors with Ripper Swarms or Necromories
Oh no,
with Ripper Swarms.
I
and that
actually
ends
like
up being
that
like
take. I like
terrifying.
that take because that the assimilation one, I felt the same way. Like, after a
See the
while figuring this
potential?
out, this actually could be really good.
I see the potential there, and the
Yeah.
potential is huge. But there's a lot of agency from your opponent to mess with
Yes.
your potential. So it's going to take a lot of mastery to get that there.
Here, we would instead of picking a faction to win the thing because it's kind of so hard, we have not given like proper justice to all the teams and everybody that's represented there. We pick a faction that we think is going to get the highest battle points over the course of the weekend, and that could be a weird thing at a team tournament. Sometimes, like
Correct.
the people that are on the teams that are even doing the worst are still getting the max battle points because they're playing, maybe a little bit in a different range.
Yeah,
Eldar is still off
100%.
the table, though. So with that in mind, what is taking the top spot for battle points over the course of the weekend?
Dibs guard.
Ah,
Slapping
son
guard.
We don't have to pick different ones, by the way. Sometimes we just do it because
should.
we want to try to, I guess, be interesting. But we can pick the same ones if you want to.
No, I'm not gonna pick the same one. I'm gonna have to be different, but I don't know how I'm gonna be different. Ah, man. Okay, you know what? I'm actually going to. I have to do a GC.
GSC.
Like I said,
right.
I don't know what it's going to look like in the future in terms of what representation is going to be, and if there's going to be a lot of players still sticking with my faction. I know a lot of you are going to get off it, so I gotta do it now.
You got to go while you can. Paul,
go while I
what do you reckon?
I'll go Chaos Space Marines.
They have
That's a
good
good
numbers.
choice. That is a
They
good
have good
choice.
numbers. Yeah.
So this is the
All
part
right.
in the show. Actually, we would have done it between this event and the last event, where we would have a sponsor. We'd say, "Hey, check out this sponsor. These people that have come on and decided that we are a good representation for their brand." But in light of that, we're going to say, check out our Patreon. We're going to sponsor ourselves for this episode, like we do for several other episodes. If you haven't already, we have several wonderful tiers to choose from over there. Every tier is awesome, and the tier 2 and above gets you access to the after show, the part 2 of the show, which we record most weeks. It goes up and where we examine how we did picking these predictions, as well as doing a little bit more forecasting on what we believe the meta might end up being ourselves.
Yeah, so we lock in and look back upon the week's predictions, see how well we did. We go through the top 10 breakdown from all the events that we covered, gives you one spicy list from that top 10, something that we think is a mover and shaker in the meta, usually something off the beaten track. I think last week or was the week before, we had a World Eaters list make a top 10, and we were just like, okay, let's just do that. We're gonna put the magnifying glass on this list and try and figure out what there is there. So hopefully that'll be getting a lot more interesting now that the meta has been shaken up, because I don't have to just be like, okay, so there's 8 out of 10 Eldar. Yes, sick. I guess we're looking.
We each got 1
list.
point. We got the 5th place tiebreaker points for ourselves.
Exactly right.
But it's fun. Look, and honestly though, you being over there, we got some of the perks and you get the show notes and some of the After Effects stuff, but it also just shows kind of the appreciation and one of those ways you can interact with the show that helps build up what we do, because it does put a lot of work and a lot of time to put this out together. We love doing it and we'll keep on doing it, but that's just one way to interact.
Correct.
If you so choose. Don't forget to leave us those 5-star reviews and the thumbs up and comments and stuff like that. That's another way to help the show keep going around.
Smash that button.
Every time I see a notification come through, it makes my heart just, beat a little bit faster. Just flutter with it.
Flutter with love.
Yeah, and here, we're only got those 2 events to cover this time. Now we're at the end of the show, but the end of the show is not over yet. We have like a little palate cleanser, or what we call the Fuego Rapido, which sometimes has very little to do with Warhammer 40,000. Sometimes has more to do than others. We'll see what this particular segment serves up. But we give ourselves a series of topics, 2 minutes to talk about it. And then once that clock starts, we just kind of like go with our gut. And at the end of that 2 minutes, we abandon all topics and can move on to the next one, never to return to it again, unless you're one of those Patreon subscribers and suggest that we do.
Yeah, I mean...
here.
We haven't done it yet.
And this is Warhammer 40,000, biggest winner of the data slate.
Biggest winner. Okay.
Winner of the data slate.
I
Everyone
have
who
a
didn't play
spicy answer for
Eldari.
I think Necrons is the faction that is the biggest winner. They're
Really?
two biggest. So I've been saying for a long time. Once the two factions above Necrons get sorted out, and now every faction above Necrons has been sorted out, we will see just how problematic Necrons can be. With Knights, Custodians, GSC, and Eldar both taking significant hits, and Necrons, in my opinion, feeling relatively untouched. I think they are looking very happy at the moment. Very happy.
The double Lipguard brick did get hit. Just
The
in the
Necron
record.
Warriors, mate. Now that Dev Wounds won't kill
Yeah.
20 Necron Warriors,
That is
Necron
true.
Warriors are 100% better than Lichguard, in my opinion.
Spicy. Paul, what do you think?
I already thought they were, to be honest. I already thought Necron Warriors were better.
Yeah, and I know there was some changes to the Astra Militarum, but I think also the Astra Militarum are getting a big upgrade without taking too much of a hit. There's lots of good weapons. The weapon profiles still stack up. Maybe in the spirit of what I think is gotten the biggest boost. I mean, I want to give a shout out to Death Guard. You know, you got some extra choices now.
Well, dude, you actually want to talk about something that's come off the absolute bottom tier, the bottom of the bottom tier, and now could be an absolute player. Votan and Death Guard. Yeah. Both going from a book that had just data sheets and no rules to, wow, we got rules now. This is great. What a great day.
It's true. They actually could do a lot. I'm going to just go right there and say it, but I actually think the biggest winner, technically, is Eldar, because they did not get hit as hard as, well, some of the other factions, and they're not going to be taken off the top that easily. Like, they're still fine. So I think they're winning in the sense that
we're out of time. We're out of time. We got to save that for another podcast. Biggest loser of the data slate. Biggest loser. I'm going to say Custodes.
I was going to say Knights, Imperial Knights.
So was I. I was going to say Knights.
Yeah,
I feel like Knights got hit the hardest just because towering changes, the loss of Overwatch on their big boys, the OS, the bondsman abilities, like it's oof.
I 100% see where you're coming from, Paul, and I think Custodes are definitely one of the biggest hit, undeniably. And the fact is, the devastating wound change actually hurts Custodes, because they used to have defense against devs when it was mortal wounds, and now they have no defense against devs, against like mortal wounds that are devastating wounds that are single or 2 or 3 increments of damage do more to Custodes than they did before.
Yeah,
and they have no say. Whereas before, they actually had the ability to roll hot and bounce off a bunch of mortals. But 100% it's Knights. Towering getting reworked, losing half their bondsman ability, as now it doesn't affect the big knight, only the little knight. And what was the other one?
Well, Tom in the chat saying
Overwatch.
Marines by far. A couple of calls for Knights. Like basically Knights saying get hit hard. And yeah, Overwatch, that is actually something true, is that the changes to Overwatch, I think are balance-wise kind of right on the money as far as balance goes, but it definitely takes some of the wind out of the sails of what was keeping some of those factions, I think, held at the rank that they were. And now that they don't have that, and these other changes that might be, we might find that that's a hit too hard.
Well, yeah, Marines is actually curious. But I mean, you got to remember too, with the Overwatch on getting free shooting phase with like a 500, 600 point model, that's why it's important to kind of put them in line, right?
The only reason I don't say Marines is because I know their Codex is coming, and if they've taken any significant hits now, the Codex is probably going to buff those out in short order.
Fix that.
Yeah.
Hey, that's the end of that one. Was anything hit too hard?
Marines, I actually think was hit too hard. I like the
really.
The Desolators going to 5-mans. I thought where Desolators were right now was probably perfect.
No,
where there was a bunch of armies where they did actually nothing into, like in the Marine mirror match, Desolators are bad. Into Custodes, Desolators are bad. Into Knights, Desolators are bad. Like there are so many armies out there of the better armies that Desolators just didn't do anything into it. So they got to a point where they were expensive, and at times in your meta they just they didn't do anything. So I thought they were fine where they were. But apart from them, who else took a big hit? I mean,
and that's another thing though, is those Desolation Marines were helping hold up a faction. Like they really were keeping them in contention. They weren't out there winning a bunch of events, but they were helping hold up that entire group of players.
Outside of Deathwatch, I did an analysis of so because the kill teams or the Death Watch veteran squad was actually a very good multi-purpose unit, and Desolators were essentially a multi-purpose unit, not in the fact that they had melee and shooting. They had two very relevant melee profiles, sorry, shooting profiles. And so when I did an analysis of Marines, I was like, okay, so you got Desolators here. And then let's just say for Ultramarines, the next best unit is off the screen. it's all the way down there. How you doing, aggressors? That's how it felt for a long time. So that's why it feels a bit rough, because you feel like the best unit got annihilated for Marines. But who else got hit really hard? I feel like
that's also, I mean, bring up to like our assaults and Koreans, some love there. Who knows?
Yeah. I mean, well, GSC got hit hard. Let's be honest.
Was it too hard, mate? What do you think?
I don't think it was too hard. No. Like the respawning infinitely for free, that was dumb. That was just a silly idea. And now it's actually like cool. Now if it happens, it's exciting, but it's not something you can bank on.
Wego.
Was anything not hit hard enough?
Eldar was not hit hard enough. But I mean, is there a way you could have hit them harder? I'm not even sure, to be honest.
Do you know Devastating wounds is still it's a problem.
What they needed to do was to do what they did with Admech and Death Guard and Votan, and just rewrite the thing for the most part. Because what is wrong with Eldar is that everything is good. Even their worst units would be good in any other book. Banshees, Scorpions, like they would be nearly takeable units in some of the worst factions. Whereas there's just such a plethora of dumb crap that we're about to find out about, because there was no need to find out about it until now.
Yeah.
Let's go it.
Yeah. Okay. I like it.
Yeah, and I do think devastating wounds. I shouldn't say it's a problem. It's a problem. It's hard to deal with. And so if you're playing with certain things, like you want to play with tanks, it's like if you're in certain environments, you just can't play with large models because devastating wounds is as prevalent as it is in what you see in list. And we're talking specifically about a competitive environment.
Right. To my mind, Necrons weren't hurt hard enough. There needed to be some kind of caveat attached to how many times you can reanimate in a turn, or in what sequence, or when you can reanimate. Because right now, when you have just people going from, 2 Necrons left out of 20 back to 20 in like 2 reanimations in a single turn, it seems really oppressive to people. And so that was the only thing. I think Necrons could have been hit harder.
Yeah. Okay.
The only one I haven't really looked in on. How did T-Sons make out, boys?
They got hurt, actually. They got hurt. Actually, you know what? They might have been ones that got hit too hard. I think so. Some of the point increases, mainly the point increase, I think it might have been a little too much. But at the same time, if they're topping events, maybe they needed it.
It's the end of that one. Do you think there was anything missed that should have been changed? Like if you had to wish list magic something into the game right now, some type of change, what would it be?
I don't actually love the devastating wound change. I have always wanted a devastating wounds to fall in line with like sustained hits and become an X number attached to the profile. So on a critical wound, it does this many mortals in addition. So you got a save and then this many mortals afterwards, and then it's a really easy adjustment when things get too strong. You just change the number, and it's done. Like that's it. There's no need to rewrite dev wounds. So like, let's just say the Wraith Cannon has dev wounds 5. So it's 1 save, its profile, and then it does 5 mortal wounds afterwards. That might have been too much. That's just an example where that could end up being 4 or 3 if that was overboard.
I do like the shift to not mortals, because that's actually what the stuff that was making it really hard to play against was that it is mortals. But with the way mortals are applied, not the way that, it's how you apply that damage. I think is the nuance there.
Right.
Well, my only issue with the way they've done dev wounds is that they've given us more. They've taken the dev wounds keyword away from being an all comers kills everything keyword, and now you've removed a bunch of defenses that we had against it. people had things that they could do against dev mortal wounds, and now those are invalidated. I look at the Lion's data sheet now, and the best thing he had going for him was an aura against mortal wounds. I'm like, well, that's just useless. Let's see you later.
That's a big thing to
That's true.
consider too, is like, does that stuff get changed? Is anything missed that should have been changed? And maybe those things that protect against the mortals should have also been, and also wounds, as a result of devastating wounds.
Yeah, you may take this save against devastating wounds. Could be a caveat attached in the future. I'm sorry, I took up that entire one. So if you want to add another minute for anybody else to have a say, that would be
That's
good.
not how this works, Adam.
That's the way the cookie crumbles sometimes. I guess no one else gets to share their opinion this show. No one else can share any opinion.
Take the whole time. We don't get to talk about this. Paul and I
for the rest of the show.
Get hurt ever.
You guys didn't have anything relevant anyway. What are you talking about?
We don't know what we're talking about.
Also true. All these things can be true. Oh, that is the end of our show. It's been a pleasure talking about these events and also talking to the folks in chat. If you're listening after the fact, like I mentioned before, please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. We come back, we do this every week, and basically talk about the biggest and the best tournaments. If you have an event that you are going to or want us to make sure we put in our kind of our pool for consideration, hit us up on some of the social medias. That's a good place to find us. Leave some comments on the YouTube channel. Subscribe to the Patreon, do all the things, check all the boxes. But if you can only check some of the boxes, that's cool too. If the Patreon is not the best place for you, leave us those 5-star reviews. It's one of those kind of like free ways to tell the show what's up. I've enjoyed being here. Hopefully y'all have as well.
Always enjoy the Thursdays.
There we go. Chat, it's been a pleasure hanging out with y'all. Everybody out there on the radio waves. We'll catch y'all next week. Good night, everybody.
Good night, everybody.